Welcome back to the webcast, All Sports One Web, and we are continuing our World Cup series. We got a couple guests to talk about Messi and Ronaldo's legacy. Let's get into it. All right, we are 25 days away from the World Cup in Qatar, where all of these stars behind me are going to be there. I'm so excited to continue the World Cup series here on the webcast. So stick with us as we cover not only the tournament as a whole, but also specifically the U.S. men's national team. We're going to be releasing a lot of content, getting you ready, hyped, amped, all of the information you need to know for the U.S. in their group against England, Wales, and Iran. But today we have to kick off with what everybody is looking forward to at the World Cup, which is Messi and Ronaldo's last World Cup with Argentina and Portugal. And I got a great panel to discuss it. Welcoming back Kester and Jacob. Welcome back to the podcast, guys. Kester, a comment for our soccer videos. Jacob has made an appearance with our NFL episodes on Tuesdays here on the webcast. Back now for the World Cup series. How are we feeling, guys? The World Cup is just 25 days away.
I mean, yeah, the World Cup year, can't be more excited. I love it. Every 4 years, it's the most exciting time. I'm a little bit bummed it's not in the summer. Having it in the summer makes it feel more just conventional, but it's still the World Cup, and I couldn't be more excited. I can't wait for all the games.
Yeah, I think we all need it. I think we all need the World Cup. But you're right. Like, it's kind of weird to get this feeling of a World Cup mid-season. Like, forget about the summer or the winter. Like, it seems like right now a lot of players are just really eyeing for the World Cup and forgetting about their domestic leagues. But whereas previously, you have players that they want to end the season on a high and then go to the World Cup. A lot of it seems. You're right. Quite unconventional, but either way, no. As a fan, absolutely excited. Can't be more ecstatic about it.
Yeah, right. That's a good point because usually you have a nice 9-month season. The better players and the better teams are always playing to the end in May and later stages of the Champions League, pushing for league titles. You're basically on your best form there near the end of the season, maybe a little bit tired. You get a small little break to get your legs back underneath you, and then you're right into the World Cup. This year, with the World Cup being in November, you have especially a season that started in early August. That is 3.5 months of play time with a team before you get to the World Cup. A lot of players, therefore, had to solidify that they were going to get playing time with with the team they're either joining or currently at. One issue that has plagued Ronaldo of late, as we will kick off with him, is he hasn't been in the United starting lineup. We saw him a couple weeks ago when United was hosting Tottenham, storm off in the 89th minute when United was 2-0 up. He was then left out of the squad against Chelsea, not even making the bench, not going on the bus to Stamford Bridge. He is now back into training. But Kester, what are your thoughts on how the 3.5 months have gone for Ronaldo at Manchester United and how that is preparing him or not preparing him for the World Cup at 37 years old?
Well, first of all, I don't condone his behavior. Like leaving your team, especially winning. When your team's winning, 2-0 up against a so called rival. Who's better than you in league position. It's a big win for Man United, and all of a sudden, the cameras turn to him, the story turns to him, rather than the team playing well on and beating Tottenham 2-0. So that's. I don't condone his behavior at all, but as a on a player standpoint, I kind of understand where he's getting at. He's 37 years old, arguably one of the best players to play the game, or even in his generation at least. And at that age, you're not. You can't really go back up in terms of form, in terms of fitness. The only the only way to go is down. And he can either maintain his fitness, he can either maintain his abilities, his form, and try to keep it that way until the World Cup, or he doesn't. The whole point for me that when he joined Man United was to, half his mind is to be able to play week in, week out, and make sure that he's able to go play in the World Cup. Probably his last World Cup too. And a player for his caliber to sit on the bench, to not be able to play, is, more than frustrating. And I kind of understand that. But I still don't condone his behavior. It causes a big problem. And, for someone that worked under Sir Alex Ferguson, I expected a little bit more from him. We saw the likes of Eric Cantona, we saw the likes of David Beckham, losing that battle between him and the club, or him and the manager, and being frozen out, or even sold in a very short period of time. So he should have known a little bit better to make it all about himself. But either way, I hope he plays. I hope he's able to regain a little bit of form, especially from the Europa League, where perhaps the pace is a little bit slower, and make it into the Portugal team, because he's going to play for the Portugal team. He's probably going to captain the side too. The question is whether he's and able to bring his ability onto the pitch, rather than whether he's playing or not. So I really hope to see him, back into the Man United squad, back into the first team, playing, at least, 30 minutes, a game, and then he can bring his form to the World Cup.
Yeah, I think the last thing you want right now as a diehard Portugal fan is Ronaldo not playing for United going into his last World Cup. Like, I'm sure in the back of their minds, even though we all don't think it, they're hoping he goes out with a World Cup trophy somehow. Like, I know the irrational fan bias, like that's what they're hoping for, and they need Ronaldo to carry out and perform and get those clutch goals that we've seen him do so often. It's been a weird return to United, and I'm just reading this article now. It says Ronaldo back on track, and I just feel like every couple months he goes through this like bipolar feelings about his situation, and he's trying to be positive when he can be, and then like right now he's in one of those positive moods, I guess, but he's gonna get probably agitated again before the World Cup. It's just tough to be such a goat in his position, like you said, like arguably all time, and to not get playing time. It's tough to see as a fan. You want him to be going into his last World Cup and truly performing like we've seen, like that. So many countless performances. Messi and Ronaldo's last World Cup. It's crazy that we've been blessed to be in this generation with Messi and Ronaldo, and it's crazy that it's kind of, this World Cup might be like the defining end to that. But yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, he's 37 years old, so I don't know if I would want him playing too much. I mean, granted, we know his role when he's playing. He's going to sit up top, he's going to wait for service, and he's going to attack every ball in the box. Only 3 goals, club and country, since June, though. So that is a little bit more of a worry. Obviously, his last goal was against Everton in that 2-1 victory at Goodison Park a couple of weeks ago. But that's been his only goal for Manchester United this season, with the lack of game time. And so if you compare that with Messi, who's obviously becoming, an integral player at PSG, 48 or so goal contribution in the 2022 calendar year. He scored against Italy in the battle of the Copa America champions and the Euro champions a couple months ago, playing good amount of minutes against Honduras and Jamaica in the last 2 friendlies for Argentina. The way that Argentina has been playing, the way that Messi has been playing. For you guys, is that going to help Messi going in with this kind of form or this kind of scoring and amount of minutes under his belt into the World Cup at 35? Or do you lean a little bit more Ronaldo, who is, yes, he isn't playing a lot, but we saw him score against Everton when he did play, and he can play maybe a good role for Portugal?
I mean, it's tough, right? It's like the first unconventional thing is we talked about this, where it's this is the first time we see a World Cup mid-season. So we don't really know what to expect in terms of how players' forms in the first 3 months are going to affect them in the World Cup. Whereas, what we're very used to seeing, whether it's the World Cup or the Euros or any sort of tournament towards the end of the season, we can kind of link how a player has been playing throughout the entire season and then going into a tournament for 5, 6, 7 games. So that's something that I think is quite unpredictable. If the World Cup would have happened in the summer and Ronaldo having the season that he had with Man United last season, I wouldn't see him at a problem at all going into World Cup. But I think fitness is always going to be the biggest one. You're ending up going to be playing one game every 3 days, one game every 4 days. So at 37, and if you're not really playing week in, week out, fitness is always going to be the biggest issue. That guy's a serial winner. He's going to find his way one way or another, and that's probably the reason why he was that frustrated, because he's just so frustrated seeing his team and not being able to be there and help the team. But I don't think it's going to affect him too much, though, in terms of in terms of his ability, in terms of his form. I think he's going to pick it up really quickly. I also think he's kind of lucky to be in the group that he's in with Portugal, because they have Ghana, they have Uruguay, and they have Korea. So not the hardest of all groups if to compare to the other guys. Ghana, not a lot of big name stars there. Korea, Song Heung-min is really not at his form. So there's a couple of guys that I think he can really get his pace going, get his fitness going, get his form going. I think they're going to make it into the knockout phase at least, and then we'll see how it goes from there. But it doesn't look that great. But either way, I think he shouldn't have a problem.
Yeah, it's tough going into such a large tournament without match fitness. If anyone could do it, it's that guy. I mean, Ronaldo, there's stories of him getting off the plane back from a match and going to the gym at midnight, because that's just the kind of guy he is. He doesn't stop working. But yeah, like I said, there's a difference between just being in the gym on the treadmill and actually having match fitness, and match fitness is so key. There's nothing like playing a game to get you into game shape, and that's going to be tough for Ronaldo at 37. Yeah, I like your point, though. His group isn't, some of the teams aren't they're not super weak, but yeah, I don't think they're nearly as competitive as Portugal, and I think Portugal easily tops the group. So he'll have a good run at those teams. Uruguay's getting old with Suarez and Cavani leading them still. Ghana didn't qualify last World Cup. Maybe they have a strong push because they haven't been back in 8 years. South Korea scoring a lot of goals, but yeah, their top players, like you said, Son is not performing like we're used to seeing, which is a shame because he's been so good the previous years. But yeah, maybe he turns it around for the World Cup. That's the cool thing about the World Cup. Anything can happen. Players step up when you're in that pressure situation, and that's what the Portuguese fans want to see with Ronaldo.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at with this. We saw the Euros 2021. Obviously that was his last season. Before that was with Juve. They goes into the summer, plays in the Euros, 5 goals in the group stage, and then they get bounced by Belgium in the first knockout stage game. But for me, I think I'm treating Messi and Ronaldo a little differently, and I actually am happy. I agree with you guys with the match fitness, playing week in and week out, but at 37 years old, he knows his role. He knows, and he takes care of himself so well that I don't think that playing a lot of games is going to help him that much more. He knows his role, especially in a talented Portuguese team. He knows what he's going to be doing. He can play up top. He can score goals. He is great in big games, as we've seen throughout his career. And so I don't think that it's as big of an issue for Ronaldo going into the World Cup that he doesn't have as many minutes under his belt as it is for Messi, who is going to have to act as a facilitator as well as a goal scorer to get Argentina moving forward. And don't get me wrong, Argentina just as talented as Portugal, top to bottom even, but we're going to dive into that a little bit more. But I think Messi, in the Copa America, he had 5 assists, helping them win there at the Maracanã against Brazil, in 2019, 2020, in that Copa America. So his assists are almost as important as his goals, which I believe are all set pieces from Copa America, whether that is free kicks or penalties.
Two penalties.
Two free kicks, yeah. So he's going to need to be more of a facilitator for that team, especially playing two up top with Lisandro Martinez as well. So I think that they both are in where they need to be going into the World Cup. So that will move us on to our next topic. Both of them we're going to expect them to be performing well in the World Cup. But who has the better squad going into the World Cup? Are we leading Portugal or are we learning Argentina? And let's break this down into segments. So let's start with the goalkeeping situation. Obviously, we know what Martinez has been for Aston Villa of late. We saw him in the Copa America, the penalties he stopped against Colombia, the quote unquote shithousery that he does on the line for penalties is absolutely fantastic. And, a big reason why Argentina went on to win that World Cup. I'm assuming for Portugal, it's going to be Jose Sa or Patricio maybe from Roma. So kind of maybe more of a toss up there. But who are you giving an edge there, guys, in the goalkeeping department? Portugal, Argentina.
I'm gonna go with Martinez over Sa, and maybe there's like a little I'm a little, what do you call it? It's like soft-hearted for him for Martinez. I know he's been through a lot to get to where he is today. Being stuck at Arsenal, without really being given a chance for a long time, and then all of a sudden coming out, going to Aston Villa, playing absolutely top of his form, as well as getting into the Copa America. But I like the way Martinez plays. I like the way he's composed as a keeper. The mindset he has. I think that's what really matters for our goalkeeper. Sa's not a bad keeper at all, but I just think I have Martinez over Sa on this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you. I love Martinez, to be honest. I love what he's about. He has the most passion for the game, and I love to see that. I was just watching the penalty kick shootout against Colombia again today, and it was still during the COVID regulation, so there was no one in the stands, so you could just hear him speaking Spanish to the Colombian players when they're about to take the shot, and he blocks 3 of them out of 5, and that's winning a penalty shootout in the World Cup can be the difference between Argentina going all the way and then them. That is a big deal to have a goalkeeper that is good at penalties. He stopped another one against Chile early on in the tournament. I think that's a huge deal, and yeah, I add Emiliano for that reason.
Yeah, for me it's a toss up. It's really tough. I think whether it's Patricio or Sa or from Portugal, and then obviously Martinez, the clear number 1 in Argentina. I think on their day they could all have great performances. We've seen Patricio have some great performances in the Champions League. We've seen Sa with Wolves, being known as this defensive wall, especially at Molineux at home. Jose Sa, a big reason for that. And then you have Martinez, who I agree with you guys. It seems like until he moved to Aston, even in the beginning at Aston Villa, he didn't really have a good club career. Kind of seems fitting for an Argentina goalkeeper, shine at the national stage and not really have a club career at all. And he really represents Argentina with his heart on his sleeve. So I will go, I guess, Martinez in this one. And so he's been fantastic for Aston Villa, but that is 3 for 3 for the Argentina as a goalkeeper. So 1 point Argentina. Now let's move to, I think, what is usually the biggest talking point going into any major tournament for Argentina, which is the center backs. And so we look at the center backs for Argentina. Otamendi and Romero were playing in the Copa America final, but now Otamendi is getting a little bit older. So is this when, Lisandro Martinez is going to slot in there next to Romero, who's been pretty solid for Tottenham. He has a thigh injury, though, kind of moving up. And on the other side for Portugal, obviously Ruben Diaz, who's been battling with injury, and someone. Is it going to be Fonte? Is it going to be Pepe? Is it going to be, who's going to be slotted in next to Diaz there? I guess we'll have to wait and see. But who are you guys giving an edge, especially as a United and City fan with your respective center backs? their performances this year for Portugal or Argentina?
I think this is really a big toss-up, right? Like, I mean, when we talk about defense, we can talk about as many great players as you like. You can have four of the best players in each of their position, or five of the best players, depending on the formation they play. And if they don't click, none of it makes any sense. So, the question is whether they click or not. In terms of individual players and individual abilities, I think it's really, really, really close. Like you said, you have Ruben Diaz on the Portugal side, you have Martinez on the Argentina side. I think Martinez has to play. It's the question on who is partnering him rather than whether Martinez is playing. But then you have, for the fullbacks, right? You have Cancelo. On the Portugal side, you have Dalot on the Portugal side, which he's been playing absolutely fantastic for Man United. He's really working well under Ten Hag. And then for the Argentina side, you have like the Taliaficos, right? Like, and you have the Juan Foyth. The guys who they know how to play. It's just whether they click or not. So I think that's going to be the biggest question for Argentina. It's been a long time since I feel like their defense has really clicked together. I think a lot of their defenders are quite, individuals. They play well with their club, but they can't really, solidify their defense. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why they didn't win the World Cup back in 2014, was because their defense was, as good as they are individuals, they're not really good as a unit. So I think that's going to be a challenge for Argentina. And for Portugal, I think it's just how they exploit their fullbacks, like how they're going to utilize their fullbacks. Both fullbacks are very, very different. Cancelo is a guy that can come into midfield and practically play as a midfielder or even play as a winger, whereas Dalot is much more of a traditional fullback. He's all right in his defending and he can support the attack, but he's in no way, initiating any attack from his side. So it just depends on how they play, what the formation is. The style they're going to be put in and how they implement it. That's how I see it.
Yeah, as a City fan, seeing Otamendi and Ruben Diaz in both those lineups, I think Otamendi gets some good minutes in this tournament coming up. I don't think he is as strong as he was back when he was a little younger. And Ruben Diaz for me is one of the best center backs in the world. I love him. He changed City's defense. We haven't looked as strong with him in the back since Vincent Kompany, and it's not even close. I really give the edge to Portugal if Ruben Diaz is healthy. He's been struggling with knocks this year in the Premier League. Hopefully he's match fit and ready to go for the World Cup. And if he is, I edge Portugal for the center backs.
Yeah, I mean, 3 shutouts in their last 6 games can speak to that for Portugal. I love Diaz. I love the energy, though, that Martinez brings. So I agree with you guys. Both have to be starting, especially if healthy, for both of their teams. And it's kind of plus who. Romero has played well from Tottenham. Every center back for Portugal seems like 37, 38, 39, whether that's Jose Font or Pepe or whoever you want to put next to Diaz. But I think Diaz and the way that he can communicate is a huge strength there. So that's just such a tough one for me. That's so tough. Can we? I don't know, Kessler, did you actually give a vote on this, or did you just kind of talk about both of them and then not give an actual vote?
I think it's just a toss-up. I can't really put my finger. If I really had to put it, I hate to say this, I would probably give it to Argentina, for just because when we talk about the defense, we have to talk about the goalkeeper together with the defense, right? So with the goalkeeper involved, I do think that the Argentine defense is a little bit better than the Portuguese one, but either way, the both teams they're not going to win by these defenses. They're not going to win because of these defenses. They're going to win because of their midfields and their forwards. Like these, it's more like, if as long as these guys don't screw up at the back, then that's good enough.
That's always been I think the Achilles heel for Argentina. We saw it against France in the last World Cup. They scored 2 against France, but they just gave up 4, and so that was the end of their trip in Russia. I think definitely the energy that Martinez brings, the energy that Lisandro Martinez brings is going to help that back line. So I agree. I'll go Argentina in this one, even though I love Ruben Diaz. I just think, especially when you partner him with a Pepe who's 39, a Font who's 37 or something like that, most likely going to be the two that are up for that second position. Argentina, I think, is more, they can handle a lot more different attacks, whether that's speed, with Romero's size, that will also help as well. So I like the partnership of Martinez and Romero over Diaz plus 37-year-old. And so I guess we'll go Argentina on that one. Switching then to kind of the wing, the right left back, which with Tagliafico on one side for Argentina, and then for Portugal, you guys mentioned Cancelo there. João Cancelo on the right-hand side for Portugal. They both can get forward. They're great on the ball. They're great at sending in crosses. I expect both of them to be starting. Maybe Acuna for Argentina, but let's go Tagliafico for now. And so with them and the midfield as well, when you look at Portugal with, I don't even know. Bernardo Silva's going to play. Bruno Fernandes is going to play. Where's João Felix going to slot in there? Argentina as well. Who do you guys kind of got in the middle of the park and as you right and left back in terms of the offensive capabilities overall?
I definitely have Portugal for the midfield over Argentina. I think the weakest link of the Argentine squad is not by far their defense or their goalkeeper. It's always been their midfield, and this is the reason why Messi has to drop in the midfield to pick up the ball, right? Like I think it was at last World Cup or the previous World Cup. Messi had to practically drop into his own half to pick up the ball, which is not ideal when you have one of the best players in the final third, to come back into his to center backs to pick up the ball. Like you don't really have a ball progressor in the Argentine squad. You have a lot of great midfielders who are great doing things in the final third. They can dribble, they can make passes, but to be able to control the midfield, they really still don't have that player. And I think it's just the culture or the style that Argentinians play that they don't really create a player in this position. The last player that probably was able to play in this position was Juan Veron. So 25, 30 years ago. So I think that's going to be their toughest part, right? Whereas the Portuguese midfield, they have is it Bernardo Silva, Bruno Fernandes, Ruben Neves, the Wolverhampton, from Wolverhampton, William Carvalho, those guys that can really be solid in the midfield and put in a shift. I think those guys are going to make a difference up front. The attacking midfielders, the wingers, the forwards, like both teams have absolutely quality players. Argentina probably has even the edge on this, but no, the midfield is 100% Portugal for me.
Yeah, I can agree more. Argentina struggles holding the ball in the midfield. Di Maria is a great winger and he's good in the attacking third, like you said, but can he play that little number 10 role in the center of the park? I don't think so. Argentina just doesn't have that kind of player right now. Bernardo Silva now is like coming into his prime years, 26, 27. Bruno Fernandes, like Portugal have a lot of big name players in the midfield, and I got to edge Portugal for that.
All right, so there we go. Edge Portugal there. So 2 Argentina, 1 for Portugal. Now let's move on to that final third. So, obviously Portugal is going to start Cristiano Ronaldo. We will see kind of, with all of the options that they have, who's going to be kind of partnering him in that final third. I have loved Leao from AC Milan playing against Chelsea in the Champions League. He is dangerous with the ball at his feet. He loves to drive. He's really quick. He loves to drive at defenders, taking them on. He can suck people in. We know what João Felix can do. Diego Jota, sadly now injured. So I don't know if he's going to be missing the World Cup, but carried off on a stretcher a couple of weeks ago. I don't think it looks very promising for him. So we'll see, kind of who plays on that other side, on that right-hand side with, I assume Leao will be on the left-hand side, Cristiano up top. And then obviously we know the front three or the front two, even with Messi and Lisandro Martinez playing in a 4-4-2 up top, or you throw in Di Maria, Lo Celso maybe on that left-hand side as well can be thrown into the attack. So who are you guys giving the edge in terms of not only the quality that each individual player has, but how they work as a front line together?
It'll come down to the system. It'll come down to whether they, like you said, play 2 up top or play 3 up top or even play a lone striker, which I don't really think either team will be able to do this, considering they have Messi and Ronaldo respectively. But it'll come down to the system. But I still have Argentina up front. The quality that they have up front are, is pretty amazing. This is probably like a once in a generational group of talent where you have so many players that can all slot in, all put in a shift, all give the quality that can give. And this can also help too. And don't forget, like we do have substitutions into the game. So if something doesn't work for 60 minutes of the game, 50 minutes of the game, you put in a guy that has a different type of play style, a different type of quality that I can give for the last 30 minutes. Like this can change the game like very, very greatly. Don't forget that Germany won the World Cup in the final against Argentina with with 2 players that came off the bench. Andres Schürrle assisted Mario Götze, and both of them came off the bench on that game. So don't like, I think especially for tournaments we can't underestimate what squad depth can bring, and I think that's 100% Argentina. They have just so many players up front. Lautaro Martinez, as you said, Dybala, Julian Alvarez too, doing very well for City, even though he's coming off the bench for Holland. Absolute absolute quality. I think the Argentinians absolutely have quality. Not saying anything. There's no disrespect to Portugal, though. They do have a lot of quality up front, but no, I think the Argentinians have the front on this one.
Yeah, a lot other City fans are higher on Alvarez than I am, but yeah, he's got some support behind the City faithful. But I guess I'm just biased with Holland. I just always want to see him on instead of Alvarez.
Why would you want to see him on? What could...
Right? Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna have to agree with Kester. Argentina looked so good from an attacking standpoint in the Copa America. Lautaro Martinez and Messi just fit together very well, and I think Messi's been kind of looking for that kind of player. Him and Aguero are best buds off the pitch. They couldn't really figure it out on the pitch for some reason, and I think I still don't understand why that didn't work out better, but it didn't. Dybala struggling with a couple of injuries right now. Hopefully he's healthy, but he's an amazing player. Sure, Roma is hoping he gets healthier also. Yeah, I just don't see it going any other way than Argentina. I think Portugal's really going to struggle for goals in this tournament. I think they'll hold the ball. They'll probably have more possession with their midfield, but in the attacking third, I think they're going to struggle. And Messi's better than Ronaldo, so Argentina.
No, yeah, not even a little bit. But is Lautaro Martinez everything we wanted from Higuain that he never was able to produce for Argentina?
In terms of being able to score one-on-ones with the goalkeeper to win the World Cup, yeah, I think so.
I mean, how could you?
No,
talk about a front three. Yeah. We talk about a front three, and we look at the past, front line that Argentina used to have: a young Di Maria, an Aguero, a Tevez, an Higuain. I mean, I don't know Messi, back a younger version of himself. I mean, it is miraculous that they weren't able to be as more effective than they were. So why is it that this time around, with the likes of an older Di Maria, an older Messi, a Lisandro Martinez, a Dybala who is left Juve now, is playing for Roma, in and out with injury.
I mean, it's a really
Lo Celso on the other side, and we're talking about Lo Celso here, okay? Lo Celso versus Aguero, Tevez, and Higuain. Why is this team able to be more potent and effective than a previous Argentina team?
I mean, it's a good point. The optimist in me wants to go back to what Kester's saying. Just it takes you just have to click with the other player. And like I said, Leo and Martinez work off the ball really well together. But it could just, the pessimist in me wants to say that they played against the Copa America countries, and those countries just aren't as good. They just simply aren't as good as what they're going to face in the World Cup. The Europe's super strong, and yeah, maybe we see coming into the World Cup that they aren't as efficient in their attacking game as we saw in the Copa. So yeah,
well, I'll say this though. I mean, is this the strongest Brazil team that we've seen since 2002? Kind of pivot a little bit to one of probably the other favorites.
I would say is stronger than this one too, but maybe since 2006. Yeah, I think you have to say that. 2014, they made it to the semifinal purely off being the home country. I think that 7-1 Germany win kind of showed that. But yeah, go ahead, Keston.
No, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, we talked about Argentina, right? They're Tevez's, the Agueros, Higuain's. They of course they had quality in the final third, but like we mentioned before, their midfield was an absolute shambles. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and say Alexi McAllister is going to be the difference maker for Argentina. He's been doing great with Brighton, but I'm going to go on a limb here and say if they slot him into that midfield, then Messi can stay up in the final third and receive the ball up front.
I mean, I will say he's the best Scottish-sounding Argentina of all time. So, I mean, I don't see why he can't make an impact. But I bring up the Brazil. I bring up the Brazil point because, like Brazil, for example, last 30 games, they've only lost 2, they've drawn 4, and they've won 22. Their 2 losses are to Argentina. And so we see how good Brazil has been. We say that they're the best team since 2006. Argentina, the thing that plagued Messi for his entire career was the fact that he could never get over the line in the Copa America, reaching the final, losing to Chile a couple of times. But never able to get over the line. But now, not only are they getting over the line, they're beating very good versions of the other team, as Brazil, for example, beating them in the Copa America final this time around. So I think for me personally, like you guys said, fit is everything. And I think that this team has developed a more gritty, energy-filled identity that even if they don't have as much quality in that, final third as they once did, that kind of energy, especially in, the defending and in the midfield with McAllister, Paredes, and the like, is what is helping Argentina overall. So to wrap this back up, we have 3 going to Argentina, 1 to Portugal. So we all think that Messi has a better squad going into the World Cup than Ronaldo. So let's move on to for which team, for Messi or for Ronaldo, does this World Cup mean more for their legacy?